Hey guys, it's Dave again. We're going to go through Rule 5. This was something that we covered in our Thursday meeting on February 16th. So let's talk about putting the ball in play and live ball situations. Okay? At the beginning of the game, everybody's got to be in the right place. What does that mean in the right place? So we want to make sure that all players are in position. Okay? Everybody in fair territory, with the exception of one player, that being the catcher. The catcher must be in the catcher's box. Then the umpire in chief shall call play, and the game begins. Once the umpire puts the ball in play, the ball is alive, okay, until something happens that causes the ball to become dead. Worth noting, while the ball is dead, no player may be put out, no bases may be run, and no runs may be scored except that runners may advance one or more bases as the result of acts which occurred while the ball was alive. So, in other words, if we've got dead ball based upon interference, if there's an immediate dead ball based upon obstruction, and we have to award bases or adjudicate that particular play, we're going to do so while the ball is dead. That's all that means at this point. We're going to skip ahead a little bit, skip over some of the other rules in Rule 5, and get to when three offensive players are legally put out, the team takes the field, we switch. So, three outs, switch sides. Pretty straightforward. The side is retired when we get into the minor league, okay, when there are three outs, or when all players on the roster have batted one time, so they batted around, or when the offensive team scores 5 runs. So generally speaking, when you're dealing with the minor leagues, they're going to have a continuous batting order. It would be exceptionally rare that they're going to bat all of the players in their lineup. More often than not, 5 runs will be scored as opposed to the three outs. Hopefully they make the three outs, but I think that's going to be the exception. When we get into 508 now, this is what happens if a thrown ball accidentally touches a base coach, okay, or a pitched or thrown ball hits an umpire. The ball is alive and in play. Okay, but if there is interference, and we'll talk in this instance, if the base coach interferes with a thrown ball, the runner is out at this point. So we really want to be a little bit more clear when it comes to the runner. What happens if we have multiple runners? Which runner is going to be out? It doesn't say the lead runner, it doesn't say the trailing runner, it doesn't say the batter runner. It just says the runner is out. So you're going to have to use your judgment in this scenario and try and understand where the interference happened and which runner to take the out from. Is it conceivable that runs may have scored and you have to grant those runs? So if you've got bases loaded, there's a screamer down the right field line, the batter runner is going into third, the ball comes in, and the coach interferes with that ball. I guess you have to take the batter runner at that point because the other runs probably will have already scored. I don't think you're going to take a lead run and wipe a run off the plate, wipe a run off the scoreboard at that point. So just be aware of that. The runner is out. When we start to get into 509, now we're going to talk about when the ball becomes dead and what happens at that point. So when a pitched ball touches the batter, hit by pitch, okay, touches the batter, batter's clothing. Again, this if it hits the batter in the hands are not part of the bat. If it hits the batter, then he's going to get first base. The runners, if forced, advance. Pretty straightforward. So you got a runner on first, batter runner gets hit by pitch, you're going to wind up with a first and second situation. If you've got a runner on second and the batter runner gets hit, there's no force there, so again, you'll wind up with first and second. Part B, plate umpire interferes with the catcher's act of throwing. Okay, what happens if we have umpire's interference? Well, if the catcher throws down to second base and gets an out at second, we've got nothing, no umpire interference. Okay, but if he doesn't get the out, we've got dead ball, umpire's interference, and the runner's return. If there's an illegal pitch, or in 50-70, juniors or seniors, it's a balk, obviously the runners are going to advance at that point. A ball is illegally batted, either fair or foul. Runners are going to return. And if a foul ball is not caught, runners are going to return. Okay? And again, the umpire shall not put the ball back in play until all runners have retouched their bases. Guys, this is somewhat important. At Little League, it doesn't matter too much. But as you get into the intermediate, the 50-70 stuff, the juniors or the seniors, where there is leading, where there is stealing, it is critical that everybody knows when the ball is dead and when the ball is in play. Don't let the pitcher go back and just start pitching again. If you've got a situation where the ball was dead, make sure that you're stating play and you're pointing at that pitcher, that you're letting everybody in the field know, including your partner, that the ball is now back in play. Okay? If a fair ball touches a runner or an umpire in fair territory before it touches an infielder, okay, that ball is going to be dead. Okay, a runner hit by a fair batted ball is going to be out. Now there's a note to this here, and it really has to do with what the situation happens to be. So if a fair ball goes through or by an infielder and touches a runner, okay, the ball is in play. Now, of course, if there's a situation where there's an other fielder that had a potential chance of making a play, then we're going to have a dead ball situation, and we're going to have interference uh, at that point. So here's the scenario. Ground ball over to the left side. The runner from second breaks for third. The third baseman is doing what they're supposed to do, cutting the ball off from the play from the shortstop. So the ball gets through the third baseman, untouched, hits the batter runner, but the shortstop was waiting in a position to make a play. Even though it did get past that initial fielder, we had another fielder, the shortstop in this case, who was in position and ready and willing and able to make that play on the ball. Okay, you're going to have to kill it at that point. That's a dead ball. So here's the situation. We've got one out and a runner on first. The batter runner hits a ground ball towards the second baseman. The runner on first, while advancing to second, is hit by the ball in front of that second baseman while the second baseman was attempting to make a play. So what do we have? Well, first of all, it's an immediate dead ball. That's 509F. That's what we just went over. So that runner going to second from first is out. Now, it gets a little complicated from this point. Okay, if it was somewhat accidental, and this is where the umpire's judgment is going to come into play. If it was somewhat accidental, you might let that batter runner stay at first base. But if you think that that kid slowed down, if he did something stupid like kicked the ball, if he impacted and interfered with the intent to break up a double play, and you can take both outs at that point, and that's going to reference 709F. You can look that up as well. So 509 now, again, the ball becomes dead, still with G if a pitched ball lodges in the catcher's or umpire's mask or paraphernalia, runners advance. Okay? So if we've got a little skipper that kind of comes through the catcher's 5-hole, bounces up, and the umpire just out of sheer instinct catches the ball, I've done this before. It's time, it's umpire's interference, the runners are going to advance. You look like a schmuck, trust me, I felt like a tool, but that's what happens, okay? So obviously try to resist that urge for those little ground balls that get by the little 12-year-old catcher that kind of dribble up your shin pads, bounce off your chest, and you just go and grab the thing out of reaction. Don't do that. Let the ball go. Runners are going to advance. Okay. Now, if a pitch ball lodges in the umpire's or catcher's mask and remains out of play on the third strike or fourth ball. Okay, well, obviously ball four, then the batter is going to be entitled to first base. But if the ball on strike three, ball in the dirt, kid swings at it because he doesn't know any better, skips up and gets caught in the catcher's gear under his chest protector, in the umpire bounces up and somehow falls into the umpire's gear, whatever it happens to be, then we've got a dead ball situation, and that runner is going to get first base because it was an uncaught third strike. The ball becomes dead, runner goes to first. Okay? A lot of red in that one. Batter is entitled to first base, all runners advance one base. And so not only does he get first base, all the other runners that might be on base advance regardless of whether or not there was a force. So if you have a runner on third only, and that situation happens, that runner on third is going to be awarded the plate. Be aware of this. Okay, doesn't happen that often, but it does happen. So you're going to need to understand where to place runners. In the intermediate division or senior division or junior division, if an illegal pitch touches a runner trying to score, runners advance. And that's the kid stealing home and a legal pitch. So in other words, he doesn't step off and throw to the plate to try and get the guy. He actually pitches the ball. If the pitch hits the kid sliding into home plate, we've got a dead ball situation, and that runner and all other runners are going to be awarded the next base. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about when the umpire-in-chief can call time. Okay, ball becomes dead when an umpire calls time, and the umpire-in-chief shall call time when, in said umpire's judgment, weather, darkness, or similar conditions make immediate further play impossible. Okay, so this is weather, darkness, similar condition. You don't want to call time in the middle of a play, and we'll get to that in a minute. But if you have the completion of a playing action and that pitcher is perhaps ready to pitch again, you should call time. And again, this is the rain delay, this is the darkness, this is the whatever it happens to be. Call time and figure out what the next step is going to be. Okay, if you're doing a night game someplace and for some reason the lights go out, turn off, power failure, or they're on a timer and you're running late, whatever it happens to be, then you've got instant capabilities to call time, and that's 501B. We'll see where that comes into play next. When we start talking about 510C, if there's an accident that incapacitates a player or an umpire, okay, this can be an immediate dead ball. This is when an umpire is going to call time. And it's one of the two times with 510B that we just saw when an umpire can actually call time in the middle of a play. In all other times, you want to make sure that that playing action is completed before the umpire calls time. So if an accident to a runner is such that to prevent from that runner from becoming hurt, whatever the situation may be, we're going to kill it. So we're going to see in the situation here in a second what happens, but we want to make sure that we're stopping play if there's an injury so that that player can be attended to. We'll always be able to figure it out and go from there. But if you've got somebody who's hurt, or if there's danger for whatever reason, you can call time at any point. When we get to D, a manager, when a manager requests time for substitution or for a conference with one of the players. Okay? So only one offensive timeout is allowed per inning. Be wary of this. Don't let that third base coach continue to ask for time to call the player down. Okay? Even if that third base coach doesn't ask for time, and he says, Timmy, come here, and that kid starts trotting down towards the third base coach, you should call time and let the third base coach know that that is their offensive timeout for the inning. We don't want to slow down play here. They get one. If he can't communicate to his player through the use of signals and needs to stop play to call him over, that's their offensive timeout, and they get one per inning. The umpire can call time when the umpire wishes to examine the ball, or to talk to either manager, or for any similar cause. So if there's an instance where they need to deal with a manager who's continuously chirping in the background, they should call time and deal with the manager accordingly. When we start to get into 510F, okay, this is really where what happens when a fielder, after catching a fly ball, falls into a stand or falls across rope or falls into any other dead ball area. What do we do? Okay, so if a fielder, after making a catch, steps into dead ball area but does not fall, the ball is alive and in play, and runners may advance at their own peril. So let's take a look at this scenario. Okay? At the plate conference, the umpires and both teams discuss and agree that ground rules will dictate an area next to each dugout as a dead ball area. So this can be for a number of different reasons. It can be because there's no fencing there. It can be that it's a area of the dugout where somebody could by continuing to run, fall into a dugout, run down some steps. It might be an area that is designated as dead ball because that's where a manager or coach is, or that's maybe where the bats are stored at some of these other fields. In either case, everybody agrees that we're going to kill the ball in this particular area that's a dead ball area. Okay? So now we've got one out with a runner on third. The batter runner hits a pop-up, and the first baseman drips over into that dead ball area and makes a catch. Doesn't fall down, keeps his feet. R3 legally tags up and breaks for home. So that first baseman, while still in the dead ball area, makes a throw to retire the runner from third at the plate. Is this a legal throw? So sometimes you'll hear that the player has to come back into fair ball territory. In the Little League rulebook, there are no such rules. There's nothing in here that says that the player must come back into fair ball territory. If he's standing up in dead ball area and he makes a play from that area to retire a runner who's advancing at his own peril, that play is going to stand. So furthermore, 510G now, when an umpire orders a player or any other player removed from the playing field, he's better be calling time. So in other words, call time before you toss somebody. And except in the cases as stated in paragraphs B and C1, and that's what I just said a few moments ago, no umpire shall call time while play is in progress. Okay, so light failure or a situation where a player is hurt or further harm can come to a player. We're going to kill it. Okay. Here's another situation. So now we've got one out and a runner on first. Ball 4 to the batter runner. And as the batter runner is jogging to first base, the defensive manager exits the dugout and asks for time, as he will most likely be making a pitching change. So we see this all the time. Okay, this kid, it's ball 4, it's ball 8, it's ball 12. And at ball 12, the manager's had enough. Okay, 3 straight walks. We've got to get this kid out of there. So as soon as ball 4 comes in, he starts leaving the dugout. He comes out, says time, and starts walking towards the thing. Now, remember, guys, managers request time. They don't state time. They don't call time. The umpire in chief, or the umpire, is the only person who is able to call time on the field. When that guy starts walking out, coach, hang on. What's the proper action for that umpire at that point? So it's coach, in a second. Let that kid get to first. Make sure that the runner who was on first is not deciding to break to third base and that there is going to be no further playing. There's going to be no further action on that play. Okay? At that point, state time. If this guy is already across the foul lines at that point, okay, you're going to have an uncomfortable conversation. It's a teaching moment. Okay? Grant time. Have a comment. Let the manager talk to his pitcher, let the manager do what he's going to do, and then once that is done, while that pitcher is going to take some warm-up pitches, calmly let the manager know that they request time only and that they only get to walk across those foul lines after time has been granted. Okay, they don't call time, the umpire calls time. So 511 now. After the ball is dead, play shall be resumed when the pitcher takes his position on the pitcher's plate with a new ball or the same ball, and the plate umpire calls play. The plate umpire shall call play as soon as the pitcher takes a position on the plate with possession of the ball. So in other words, don't put the ball back in play until that pitcher is on the pitcher's plate ready to pitch. As we saw in 501, all the fielders have to be in their proper positions, catcher in the box, batter in the box, pitcher on the plate. And that's all we've got for 5. Thanks, guys.